correspondence, Mr. Riley?
None on my end.
Ms. McDermott?
None on mine.
All right. Anything correspondence-wise the rest of the board wants to chime in with? Thank you. I need a motion to waive the reading and approval of minutes.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Cybulski?
Yes.
Mrs. Krieg?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz? Yes. And Mr. Pierson?
Yes.
Report of the interim superintendent, Mr. Riley, please.
Okay, just a few items on my end this evening. Enrollment-wise, we are pretty much staying consistent above 2,000. So as of November 1st, we had 2,063 students district-wide. As noted in the last board meeting, Senate Bill 29 is still in effect. We are sending out, per legal counsel, the forms and documents that have been given to us. We are sending them out via final forms, and we are sending them out to 2,004 emails daily. Unfortunately, I've seen some families have requested, can they opt out of the situation? There's no opt-out option, so unfortunately, we keep sending those out. But we've only had roughly, between myself receiving some emails and the building administrators, about 25 to 30 parents district-wide reach out just asking for clarification. So out of 2,000 emails going out daily, only 25, I suppose that's pretty good. Hopefully the legislation will change soon. We do appreciate the patience and understanding from our families and know that it's a lot of emails going out through the final forms, and hopefully that will be rectified here shortly. It was my pleasure to go to several attendance at events recently since the last board meeting. Trunk or treat events seem to be a wonderful time for our families and our community and the kids especially. Austinburg's Boo Bash was phenomenal, and I think Mr. Markajon gave out the best candy. He gave out the oversized large bars of candy.
Oh, I don't know, Mrs. Cozy.
So that was nice. The middle school was packed when I went there, and GPS, they had actually had a pumpkin decorating competition also going on, and I think the one that was for Mrs. Berzanko may have taken the pumpkin pie, if I had to say that. But anyhow, that was very good. The fall play, You Can't Take It With You, was great. GHS lamps and pin ceremony that the academic boosters sponsored was phenomenal. I also had a chance to attend the Kris Kringle Craft and Vendor Fair that's sponsored by OPSI. I love Christmas, and I loved crafting as well. So for me, that was great to kind of steal some ideas that were out that way and then maybe take them home and someday replicate that. Also, we had several Veterans Day programs throughout our district, and I was able to attend one of them before going down to the state conference. For November is actually Veterans Month, even though we recognize and we take time out on one day. I know that on behalf of the district and their administration and the board, we certainly want to take the time and acknowledge our veterans and the sacrifices that not only they have given, but also their family members who send them off to service and welcome them when they get back. So do appreciate all that the veterans are doing, those that have served and those that currently are serving. OSBA Capital Conference was November 10th through 12th. Myself and several board members went down there. That was my first attendance at that event. There were just thousands and thousands of people there. And congrats, obviously, also out to Michele Krieg for presenting. It's not easy to stand up in front of an audience of your peers and make a presentation of any sort. But the presentation they had of wearing dual hats, board member and educator, I would think there was probably 60, 75 people maybe in that room. And it was one of the more attended sessions of that particular block of time. So kudos to her and her colleagues for doing that. As a reminder, Thanksgiving holiday break, district offices, schools will be closed from November 28th through December 2nd. We will resume classes on December 3rd. And there will be a letter coming out from my office, hopefully, actually should by the end of this week here, that's talking about snow days and calamity days and whatnot. We will make every effort to close school should the weather dictate it before 6 o'clock in the morning so the families and everybody can kind of prepare, and also our staff who have some long drives maybe to get in. We do need to recognize that the square mileage in our district is huge. So it may look great up at Geneva High School, but it could be a blizzard down at Cork and Austenburg. So we always try to take that into account when we're doing. So we have a few staff members that'll help kind of go out on the roads about 4:30 in the morning to kind of help figure out what we're looking at. So we do have plowing and salting companies ready to go. So hopefully the rain will continue and we won't have snow, but I do think it'll be here before we know it. I would like to thank the handful of students that saw me at the last football game. And after at Spire that we won, and they said, "Hey, Mr. Riley, we won. Can we have a snow day tomorrow?" I said, "No, I love snow days as much as anybody else," but I told them it's just too early. So I do appreciate them asking. It was very nice of them. But no snow days yet, and hopefully we'll take those into accordance when they come. On my end, that is all. Mrs. Doherty, can you come up and talk about the elementary level? Thank you.
Hello.
There you are.
At all of our elementary schools, what's happening there is we rounded out October with our fall parties and our parades, and it was amazing to see how many parents show up for our parades. They just love watching the kids walk around. I mean, it was a big crowd, and I think that's at all the buildings. And we are celebrating we are honoring our character trait this month, and it's gratitude, which goes along with Thanksgiving. And the teachers do morning messages with them. We are announcing it. A lot of our students wrote thank you notes to our veterans when they came to visit us. So they are practicing having that gratitude. So in their morning journals. So we are going over that with them, trying to get those character traits down. And Mr. Riley did talk about Veterans Day celebration. We had Bruce Hook as our speaker, and the little kindergarten kids just kept running up and hugging him when he was trying to give his presentation. It was cute. But Mrs. Stoll puts on an excellent performance there. The students sing, and all of the veterans are on the side. It's very nice. A big thank you to our local Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. They presented the flag. And, of course, she does her PowerPoint, and we did share the number of veterans in attendance and the number of veterans that she had on the slideshow, and she talks about each and every one of them. So it's pretty powerful, and, of course, our PTOs or parent groups are there to provide them with a little bit of breakfast before the whole ceremony. So it's nice to see them, and the kids get to sit with their relatives if they are a veteran. So she does such a nice job with that. It's a lot of work, and she does a great job with that. We did have parent-teacher conferences. Those were as well attended, which we always want to see. The teachers were very busy trying to squeeze everybody in, so it's a perfect time to have it. We've had our first 9 weeks, so it's a nice time to talk to parents about, how we're moving forward. And then tomorrow we do have a special visitor. We have our Rotary coming to deliver our dictionaries to our third grade students. And this is an annual thing. Mr. Kujala is going to be in to bring them in for them. And the kids just love getting them. And I still see kids in the upper grades that use them. Even though there's technology and everything, they still have those books in there. And he does a great presentation going through it, looking for the largest word ever. And they're always shocked. So it's nice. At Cork, just a couple things. We did have our student council elections, getting prepared for election day. And today they did have a meeting, and Mrs. Szymanski, she's a parent in our area, she is getting her principal's certification, so she is doing things in our school with me. And she came and she had the students working on a Cork mission statement, because it's been a long time since we've done that. And she had up the portrait of a graduate and used that as a sounding board, starting board for ideas. And for that age of kids, what they came up with, it was pretty remarkable. I remember us as adults sitting in there trying to think of them, and we were just sitting there. They were coming up with ideas, and it was nice that she went over the portrait of a graduate with them too again. I mean, we have that in the building, and so I thought that was pretty interesting, that how what do I want to say? How at ease they were with coming up with something like that. We did have our trunk or treat, and even though Mr. Markajon might have had really big candy bars, somebody's popcorn was the best, and everybody's going to come back for it next year. So it was a lot of fun, and our PTO does a great job with that. We had a big crowd as well. We were getting a little nervous, and all of a sudden everybody came at once. But it was also nice because we did have the sheriff's department. We had EMS. I think they were there. I was too busy making popcorn. And then we had the fire department there as well. And then with that, the fire department approached us and said, because they do something like it too, and they said, how about if we combine it? And so I thought that was a really good idea to put it all together, because they have a hard time coming up with volunteers anymore, and so we're looking forward to that connection there too, because they do so much for us. So we did have our big safety drill, and it was a success. Again, thank you to Mr. Markajon. He's always there for us for safety. We had the students go over to and our parents over to the family reunion, our rally point, our family reunification point, and we all felt like we just did it. But it's been years since we've done it, and the kids that are there now, they don't really understand that. So thank goodness for our transportation department and everybody. The fire department came to help. I think our plan is solid. We got them over there, and the parents are very patient. I even tried to get a couple of them to be like aggressive and want their kids, but they wouldn't do it. So, but there's some things that we have to tweak, and that's what these drills are for. And the kids they were just a little disappointed because they didn't go out the windows. But we're going to I promised them we'd do that in the spring. But it does scare some kids, and they always have the option to opt out. And we did have some families opt out of it, which is fine. But we really didn't give a scenario. It was more about exiting and going over to our rally point. So, but our transportation department, we couldn't have done it without them, because they brought the buses there and they were ready for the kids. So, and then Mrs. Bordeaux shared an activity that she's doing. She gave them several long pieces of yarn, and the kids had to carry pumpkins and transport them to her, past her. And she said it was a great activity because you really could see them working together and not getting frustrated. She thought they would get frustrated with each other, but they weren't. And there's thinking and trying to come up with an idea to get that pumpkin moving. So they had a great time while they're learning. And then last thing, speaking of STEM, we did turn a little room that we have off the library into a STEM lab. We don't have a big room, we're out of room, but what we do is with our career funds, we've been able to buy a lot of products to put in there. And we did carve out some time during the weeks that if teachers do want to go and use the STEM lab, they can go in and get the materials, but then go to the library to spread out and use it, because we don't have a room that big. But at least we problem solved and came up with that, and they're really liking the items in there. So, and we're looking for more now through our, thank goodness for the county career committee, because they really promote the STEM and the items with that, because it is totally connected to careers. So we thank them as well. So that's all I have to report. Any questions?
What type of items do you have in there?
We have 3D pens, we have like robotics, little things to put together. We have things for younger kids too, like mazes, blocks, things like that. They all love, even though Legos just sounds like a toy, we have those maker space cards that they have to design certain things. There's so much like that. And there's this one maze that you have to set up the cubes and you put the marble through. And we have one student that he struggles in class, but he put that together. I'm like, how did you do that? I couldn't figure it out. He had it done in 2 seconds. It was like, okay. So then he's showing me how to do it. I don't think I still got it. But yeah, but it was really nice to see that, because some kids, just do better with that, and they're thinking differently. So it was really nice to see that. But yeah. So we have that kind of stuff. We don't have a big room. We don't have a 3D printer yet or anything, but they do like the 3D pens, because you can build up with them and that. So, and they're kids safe. So I worried about that at first. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Doherty. Oh, it's a joint venture.
Oh, boy.
It's a duet.
I said nothing. Good evening. We thought it. So thank you so much. I had the secondary, and Mr. Riley talked about the military appreciation day on the 11th. We did appreciation week. We did something different each day, because it's so hard to have all the veterans go to one place on one day. So we try to do something different each day. We did our field of flags on Monday. Those flags are still there. If they haven't been blown over with the wind tonight. When I left, they're still standing. Tuesday, the students wrote Love to Write Day. Acrostic poems were written by the 6th graders. 7th, 8th graders wrote letters and made cards for veterans. Wednesday, we had National Kindness Day. We recognized our Good Citizens recipients. That's the first time we did that. And you guys have it in your handout what that stood for. Thursday, that was our Thanksgiving feast at school. We invited veterans to come in, have dinner or lunch with our Good Citizens people, and we had nine veterans show up. They sat, and it was great to hear some of the kids walk by, and he said, that was so much fun to talk to them. I'd love to do that again. So that made a difference for me. We had, during Thanksgiving, we had some great people who served. Officer Cooper helped serve a couple lunches. We had Deputy Sheriff Murphy come in, and firefighter Lyons came in because they all had kids in the building, so we invited them to come in. And the kids had fun watching their parents come in there. I made Murphy's daughter go through his line. She didn't like that too well, but she did it anyways. And then Friday we had 2 Army recruiters come in, meet with our students in grades 6 through 8, talk about their careers, why they chose military as a career, and the overview of being in the military and so forth. So we're very happy with that. We're in the process, some of you know, we're in the process right now getting our career day / reality day ready for December 6th. So that's in the final stages of all that. So we're moving right along. And I want to share the spotlight here with Jen. She has some good things to say.
I think I'm going to put this down here. Okay. Good evening. I just wanted to take a moment to share with you all something that Geneva City Schools should be proud of. Last week, I attended the Ohio Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association conference in Columbus. Geneva was awarded the Bruce Brown of Excellence Award. I know you're probably sitting there thinking, well, what does this mean? But Bruce Brown was an athletic director at Uniontown Lake, and he passed away in 2020 unexpectedly. He was an advocate for creating standards and best practices for education-based athletics. This award recognizes schools that demonstrate intentional efforts to shift the culture of school-based sport programs as an ongoing process. The award recognizes ongoing and consistent efforts on the part of Ohio interscholastic athletic departments that demonstrate best practices and nationally accepted standards in the endorsement and promotion of education-based athletic programming. There's 9 categories that needed to be met to receive this award personally and for the district. First was to provide evidence of board-approved athletic department philosophy statement, which specifically identifies the mission of interscholastic athletic programs as extensions of the curricular and academic programming within the school district. The second category is educational strategies. The athletic administrator, or in our district's case, the athletic director, must have earned a master's degree in education or athletic administration, completed a minimum of 2 leadership courses through the National Interscholastic Athletic Administration Association, provide evidence of in-house training for coaching staff, provide the promotion of coach beyond strategies, as well as strategic planning and coach mentoring. The AD must be a member of the OIAAA, which is the state professional organization that provides professional training for athletic administrators, updates that are pertinent to the interscholastic athletics in the state. The third category is risk management. The development of the cautionary statements for each sport was an outcome of this project. Developing an emergency action plan for each sport with the help of our UH athletic trainer, which describes the protocols that are in place per sport, in addition to protocols for heat and cold emergencies and severe weather are a few examples. The next category was access and equity. In this category, a study was conducted which evaluated Title IX compliance within inventories, facilities, athletic budgeting, game and practice scheduling, which are just a few items that were evaluated. Provisions and accommodations for students with disabilities was also evaluated. Assessment was the 5th category. In this category, the assessment of the coaching staff was evaluated. I'm not sure how many of you are aware that in this district I am a member of the GATA. Therefore, I'm not allowed to evaluate our coaching staff. That's handled by the building administration. However, the process of these assessments were evaluated. This is a category in which I would like to see the district improve on. I'd like to advocate for the Coach Evaluator program to be purchased to evaluate the coaches. The majority of the districts in the Chagrin Valley Conference use this evaluation tool and find it to be more beneficial to the coaches to provide them with adequate feedback on their coaching of each season. The overall athletic department and its programs were assessed for improvements needed as well. Technology and media was the next category. This category I think we excel in, but could do so much more. With the help of students in the Adobe 2 and 3 classes, they designed social media posts that are utilized in the athletic Twitter and Instagram sites. The GenevaEagles.com website provides up-to-date information as well, and students in the web design class are starting to update various sections of that site as class projects as well. The sports medicine category, I'm not sure if you all know, but Geneva Area City Schools is the last school that university hospitals provide a free athletic trainer contract for the high school. Jefferson's free contract was just pulled this past August. I'm not sure if anyone really knows what that means for our district. That means we do not pay for anything that the athletic trainer does for us or any supplies for taping, braces, any of those kinds of things that are needed. The job she does to get our kids in to see doctors, to get x-rays, MRIs, is immeasurable. She works very hard at getting our athletes rehabbed and back to practice or games as fast as she can. If we didn't have her, everything would move at a much slower process. The PA, Vinny Emhoff, he volunteers his time to be our PA at our varsity football games. He also runs injury clinics throughout the year for our kids, all part of this free contract and trying to give back to the community. Anyway, I just thought it was a good time to let everyone know what we have and what will be missed if UH ever does away with that contract. In this category, Dee and I evaluated all the facility layouts, phones, AEDs, who has keys to access emergency equipment, the location of the emergency equipment, etc. Dee and I sat on the Chagrin Valley Conference Committee that instituted the FRST program, which stands for First Responders for Sports Trauma Program for the Chagrin Valley Conference. This program is in place at all CVC high school athletic events. The program requires a pregame emergency meeting with coaches, the AT, the officials at the start of each event. If the AT is not present, then an AD or the coach runs the meeting. Dr. Flannery with UH is presenting the FRST program at the legislative level to try and get it mandatory at the state level. Innovation and creativity. This category is the fun category. This is all the non-contest engagement of students or adults with the interscholastic athletic program. Things that we do all the time, or do all the time, often without getting noticed. Like homecoming court, which included football players and cheerleaders, as well to go out and meet and greet at the elementary schools this past October. The pep band at basketball games, marching band at football games, choir students singing the national anthem at sporting events, the athletes announcing pregame speeches at their games. If you did not get a chance to see this last winter, it was a sight. I have not seen any other school do this, and I received so many people saying how cool it was to see our team leaders announcing to the entire stands at a basketball game the pregame sportsmanship announcement. You know, the statement that the announcer states at the beginning of the game about good sportsmanship, and everyone in the stands just keeps talking. Well, when a student athlete gets up and walks to the center court to speak, it's amazing that everyone in the stands gets quiet. When I first asked the coaches if they would support this, they all undoubtedly said, yeah, this is great. I thought I would get some hesitation from some of the athletes, but they all volunteered to do it, taking turns. So it was pretty neat. The photography classes that run photo shoots and create different projects, the graphics on the weight room windows, the art classes painting Tuffy in the concession stands, the updating of our athletic facilities like the painting of the dugouts out back, which involved teachers with the same vision of what our school facilities should look like, the building of the JV dugouts, the new wall mats in the gym, the updated entrances to the gym, the new digital wall display that we just got last week. There are so many things that have occurred over my 18 years here, and they go on yearly that fit into this category. The last category is continuous improvement. I think that Geneva athletes and coaches do a phenomenal job with the little resources we have. We need to increase the number of coaching staff for both the safety of our athletes and to be able to rise to the next level as our opponents have. For example, we have one coach for girls and boys high school cross country with sometimes more than 30 students on it. We have 1.5 coaches for 7th and 8th grade football. That leaves football with one coach on any given day. We've been blessed to not have an issue with a coach that needs to go in an ambulance who would stay with our athletes. Or a coach has to ride an ambulance with a player who stays with the team. Or somebody has to make the choice to send an injured player to the hospital alone. Oftentimes we get volunteers, but the question is that in the best interest of our players? Once again, look at how successful our athletic programs have been over the years. We have the same amount of staff since before I was hired 18 years ago, and even longer than that from what I'm being told. Could you imagine where we would be if we had more staff and more resources? We need to continue to push for our own stadium facility. Our teams truly deserve to play on our property, their own home. We need to increase the size of the weight room. More now than ever, athletes need the weight room to build strength to keep injuries at bay. We need to input the coach evaluator system to evaluate coaches. I'd like to encourage the board to support the high school administration in their efforts in creating the following classes: Media and Marketing 1 and 2, which will help and assist in our efforts in telling the story of Geneva High School and all the great opportunities that our students and athletes have available to them. We continue to strive for improving leadership among our athletes by participating in the CVC leadership workshops every year. We continue to involve our youth athletic programs at various high school youth events and so much more. Ultimately, we receive this award because of all of you, all of the people in the community that make up the community. The athletes and the standard of being good sportsmen, sportswomen on and off the playing field and courts that they abide by. The exceptional academics in the classroom, the leadership they display in the classroom, hallways, playing field, and in the community. The parents for helping to raise the school bar of what it means to be a student athlete. The teachers of the district that raise the bar for our academics. The students in the district that are an extension of athletics by designing media posts, the band providing entertainment at events, choir students performing the national anthem, the art department adding art to the concession stands, and on and on. This community is a strong community with high morals, ethics, and integrity. There is not a doubt in my mind that the Eagles deserve this award. There are only 2 schools in the county that have been awarded this to date. Edgewood is the other school that received this award last week as well. 9 schools in the Chagrin Valley Conference have earned this award since the start of 2015. I am proud to present this banner to the district tonight, and more importantly, to display this banner in our high school gym for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's quite a lengthy process. It sounded like it. Didn't sound quick.
Not as tall as them. Good evening. For our student service update,
Kelly, look closer.
oh man.
I'm
Oh. I always feel like I'm screaming in these things because you just don't know.
Can't be too loud.
Well, all right. For the student service update, in October, end of October, the special education profile for the state came out. This is just a rating of disproportionality, timely evaluation, secondary transition, compliance, validity and reliability of data that's reported. As per all the years that I can see back to 2019, 2020 school year, we received all of the points possible. Most of them just give you a number of points, and there's no breakdown of the data that's within. But the one that does break down the data is the student graduation rate for students with disabilities. And I went back to the 1920 school year to see that number has increased. From 1920
I
to,
think 2020, Kelly.
from
We were
2019,
there in 19,
2019 to
oh,
2020.
I thought you said 1920.
I did, 19-20.
I apologize.
That's okay. That's
look-
all right.
you
I
look
was
good for
not
your
there
age.
in
Yeah.
1920. From 2019 to 2020, there was a 54.84% graduation rate of our students with disabilities. 22-23, 87.5, which is one student out of our students that were graduating with disabilities that did not walk across the stage. And that could be that they decided to continue on with their programming because they have that option until they're 22. So that's a huge amount of growth, and I thought that that was commendable. Beyond that, there's just some updates. I did some mock interviews at Lake Erie College last week. They were 20-minute rotations. I met with 5 students. Of those 5 students, 2 of them were getting special education licenses. Of those 2 already have jobs. So, alas, here we are. This is the 3rd time that I've done these mock interviews with Lake Erie. Jim Kalis is in charge of them, and he reaches out pretty consistently to me to find a team or go myself. It's fun. It's interesting to see the new things that kids are learning in college. It's been a long time since I did my undergrad, so it's interesting to talk to them and learn about their experiences, mostly across Lake County, in their field experiences. Mr. Riley and I went to a webinar put on through BASA about special education model policies. A new set of model policies is supposed to come out. I keep checking back, thinking they said soon. They haven't come out yet. Once they come out, then it is something that does have to be board approved. They also have told us that there will be an updated procedural safeguards that will be released. The last procedural safeguards were updated in 2017, so it's been a while. That was a great update because it went from, I think, a 48-page document to, I want to say, 16-page document that we have to hand to every parent at a meeting. It has also been indicated that the special education documents, IEPs, ETRs, and whatnot, are going to be updated for the beginning of next school year. So we're interested to see, a little bit nervous to see what it is that they're changing. But hopefully they put things in the right order on the IEP is what my biggest hope is. But it'll be interesting to see. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Still you?
The interim superintendent recommends a motion to accept the following revised policy for board adoption. It is policy number 0164, notice of meetings.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion about it?
What does this change?
The change is that we've added one sentence in it that basically addresses that we are placing now our board meeting notices on our board office window to communicate it out in yet another format than what we usually do.
Perfect. And is that the website?
It's on the website. We put it on the website. It's now posted on our the meetings. They're on the marquee in the front of the building. It's also now posted literally on our front door of the board office so that it can be accessed 24/7 by anybody that doesn't have technology. They can come up and see that we have that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Krieg?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Pierson?
Yes.
Mrs. Cybulski?
Yes.
The interim superintendent recommends the following personnel actions for the 2024-2025 contract year.
Motion?
Moved.
Second.
Any discussion, comments, questions? Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Pierson?
Yes.
Mrs. Cybulski?
Yes.
Mrs. Krieg?
Yes.
Okay.
Treasury report, please.
So, we kind of changed the way the agenda is rolling with the treasurer's section. So I have combined both the financial report. First of all, that's combined. We don't need a separate motion to approve the listing of disbursements for the month as compared to what is being presented in the reports, and then listing the investment report separately. So for now on, going forward, we will have a treasurer's financial report. It will be one document that you will vote on and approve. Also in that section, there'll be anything else that comes before you from me in that section to vote on, as in today, we have the 5-year forecast. So I just want to give you a heads up. Also, starting next month, at the beginning of your report, with the new software that we have implemented this year with the 5-year forecast, you'll kind of see it has a different look. It also has kind of a monthly report feature. It's going to be a little more colorful for you to view and understand. It does take into account the 5-year forecast as compared to what the forecast is projecting, as where we're at today. So I wanted to wait until the forecast was approved tonight so we can update the reports. And so going forward, you know, it can see, just to give you a little heads up, it also compares where we were at the end of last year at the same time. So kind of, I just printed it out for just to talk about. Our revenues are $645,000 higher than last year at this time. And so revenue is trending as compared to the forecast of last year of $846,000. So we'll be able to kind of, you'll have a visual look of what is going on and where we're at. And again, you know, right now at the end of October, we are, what, a third of the way down with the fiscal year. So it kind of, you know, will give you some percentages and some graphs to better understand, since I know throwing numbers in front of you is a lot.
Is that in here yet?
Not yet.
Okay,
It will be,
good.
yes, next month. Just so you know, also on the update of the financials, your investment report is included. Starting next month, I have put money into the Star Bank, which again, most entities do have Star Bank. The return rate is a lot better than what we can get at Andover right now. I've also started the process with Red Tree, who will overtake all of the investments that are on the investment report. So they'll be in charge of all those investments going forward. Again, you know, we've already written the letters to let the different banks know that this is coming. So, you know, going forward, and then I know Michelle has her lunch report in here. Again, this does start to show the funds that we are receiving as we are going CEP. So I will give a big ta-da in a little bit in the forecast about going CEP and the changes that it will reflect in the forecast. So are there any questions on what you see before you on, again, just, we are talking the financial report.
So for the lunch report, will the new software do anything to present that differently?
It won't, because the software with the forecasting is mostly based upon the general fund.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question about Star Bank. So many of us appreciated using Andover Bank because it's local. Where is Star Bank located?
So it's kind of just an online, you know, bank that is used out of Columbus. We still do have funds, in Andover Bank. Just to kind of put it in perspective, right now Andover is giving 2.5% interest, as Star Bank is 5%. So it is almost double.
Nice.
So again, we
You're
do.
referring to Star, Ohio.
What's that?
Star, Ohio.
Yes,
Oh, Star, Ohio.
Star,
Okay.
Ohio. Sorry.
No,
So
you're
it's about-
fine. I was just curious.
So again, because Kevin was able to invest on his own into all these different types of bonds and CDs, again, I don't have that training to do that. So, you know, that money can go into Star for that quicker return. The amount that's at Andover, right now, even with me transferring some to Star, is still higher than we normally ever have in Andover Bank. So, so again, yes, we definitely will still utilize the local banks. We still have Star Bank, or I'm sorry, we still have Andover Bank, we have US Bank, and we also utilize Huntington Bank in Geneva.
Oh, Awesome.
But,
Thank you.
yes.
Any other questions or comments?
You need a motion.
Oh, yes, we probably should have had that first, sorry.
Oh, right, sorry.
Moved.
I apologize. Second. Any further discussion?
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Pierson?
Yes.
Mrs. Cybulski?
Yes.
Mrs. Krieg?
Yes.
And Mrs. Milliken Dixon.
Yes.
Okay, so the treasurer recommends the approval of the five-year forecast, which is a projection of revenues and expenditures for current fiscal year and ensuing 4 fiscal years. This is based upon a requirement by House Bill 412. I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions before she gets started?
Well, you may have questions in a minute, right?
Yeah, great.
Mr. Mark or John, do I just need to plug in? Yes?
I'm gonna move so I don't have to lean in.
Sit the other way, I think.
It's upside down.
Nope, not yet. I know you're really excited about this. This is like the best time of the year. Okay. So, again, this is going to be a little bit different than what has been presented before. This software is one of the items that we did pass earlier this year. So it was quick and so we could try to get this, so we could present this November forecast. A few things about the five-year forecast. It is required, as previously stated, by the state of Ohio. It is done twice a year. So the first one is in November. The second one will be in May, which kind of will give an update of any changes that might have occurred throughout the year. Again, it is still for fiscal 2024. The five-year forecast does only represent the general fund. So what we're looking at here is just a portion of the different funds we have in the district. But this is the one that, you know, is the most important to the district as a whole, as a taxpayer. And the highlight of it all is, the only thing we know for certain, and hopefully this has always been told to you, is it's gonna change. Any given day, you know, we might say, okay, we decide we need this going forward. So this will change, and this will change by May. And this has changed from what I have done as compared to what Kevin had presented back in May. When we go through this, I'm going to kind of show, so the state has really started to analyze these five-year forecasts. So what they're looking at is your cash balance. The first 3 years, they're looking at a certain line as compared to year 4 and 5, and I'll kind of touch base on that when we get to the main event. So we're going to kind of touch base, go through what makes up the revenues, what makes up the expenditures, kind of shows some graphs. So I know everyone's really excited tonight. Okay, and so here, this is kind of just, and I know it's kind of hard to read, this will be posted on the website, hopefully, probably by Friday, if not tomorrow, in case anybody wants this close-up version, and all this lovely explanation. But again, this kind of gives a synopsis of where we're at. So you can see revenues, you can see expenditures, and you can see where our balance is. Again, this is just a quick overview, and I'm going to kind of dig in so you understand what, again, makes up how schools are funded. It's kind of interesting. That's right, for us numbers people. Again, just a quick graph that kind of shows, you know, that one in the middle, again, kind of looks dreary, but you'll see overall, it's hard to predict, right, what happens in 5 years. I mean, who would have thought in 2019 what would have hit in 2020? I mean, so we can only give our best guesstimate as the years go out that far, 4 and 5 years. Okay, so here's our revenue overview. So you can see that on this, has a nice graph at the top. In the green is local taxes. The local taxes make up 47% of all of our revenues. The state. So this is items that, you know, you're paying your taxes to the state gives us back the money, 48%, and then all other revenues are 5%. You can see here in the bar graph of just where our total revenues are, where they're growing. Kind of a quick view, you can say, oh, look at 2025, it's a little bit higher, and then it goes down. And so we're gonna kind of talk about that. Also, you can see a little bit of orange in 2029. And so I'm gonna kind of give you a little explanation of what that orange means when we get to where the orange is at. So, the big chunk, 29.2% of all of our revenue comes from the general property tax. So as you know, this is, you know, what you are paying through your property tax bills. In 2024, you can see there was that jump of reevaluation. There will be another increase, a triennial update in 2026. But we, you know, again, we are in between those years of those reevaluation. It does, it can go pretty flat. If not, sometimes you actually will lose a little bit of dollars because we have properties that go to the Board of Revisions to get their property tax bills reduced. Public utility, so that is your utility funds that we get our money for. A quick explanation on why 20 and 21 are empty. At that time, Kevin was, the previous treasurer, was building that in and kind of did not allocate the difference between the two. They are both types of personal property tax. So again, that will go up, you know, at the same rate as, I'm sorry, not the same rate, because they are not subject to 920, so they will go up a little bit more as property values go up.
Shelley,
Yes.
what are the zeros on the top of the later ones, 25, 26? There's a $0
Oh, that's a good question.
Oh,
I don't know.
okay. Something to
I apologize. I will look into that,
Okay.
definitely.
Thank you.
And there's a zero on all of them. That is interesting. Yes. Okay, so 1.03 is our school income tax. So as you know, the school income tax was implemented in, I'm trying to see here in my notes, 2019. So it is a 1.25% income tax, earned income tax. And it is a 10-year income tax. So here we go with that orange that we saw on that first page over all the revenues. So since it goes through 2029, we start to lose some of that value. So right now, the income tax is bringing in a little over $4 million a year. And I've kind of estimated that with a slight increase of a 2% going forward after this year. So when we get to 2030, in fiscal year 26, I guess, next November when I show here, that will actually all be in orange for the 2030 because that is a pending renewal levy. So that will have a major impact on the forecast going forward. Right now, our collection rates, the first 2 quarters are 4.3% increase as of last year of this time. Okay, unrestricted grants in. So we kind of talked about, we have property tax money, we also have money that comes in from the state. So from the state, we get unrestricted and we get restricted. So here is the unrestricted money. This is through the, I'm gonna get the acronym right, the Fair School Funding Plan. So again, we are, we're on a formula, and this formula has been in place, it's in place for 6 years until they revise it. So you can see that it's pretty flat. This is based upon the number of children we have enrolled. So as we have declining enrollment, this number can fluctuate. Again, if we have increasing or declining. So as stated at the very bottom here it says the average daily membership, the ADM, plays a crucial role in our state funding. Okay, here's the slide I've been waiting for. Okay, so this is restricted grants, aid in. So what this consists of, so twice a month we get our state funding allocation. So in 2022, they started, things that used to be unrestricted became restricted. So in this restricted grants, we have student wellness dollars. We have a disadvantaged pupil impact aid dollars. We have career tech dollars. We have English language learners and student wellness dollars. So today I pulled a report from ODE for our second payment. So this year the district decided to go CEP. And it is community eligibility provision, which allowed lunches to be served free. In that, it also, everyone gets coded in our state system as economically disadvantaged. So, whereas of the beginning of the month, we were going to get $213,000 in for our disadvantaged pupils, we went up to $1.5 million. So again, these are restricted funds. We will have to work with the district to make sure that those funds are spent in the proper manner. But again, that is, I had built in 1.4. This forecast was done before this morning. But again, in actuality, we will receive $1.5 million. So that is an increase of $1.2 million than we received last year in the same category. Because we switched to CEP, correct.
Does it also depend on the students participating?
No, because since we are district CEP, every student is marked economically disadvantaged. So you can see that it is only for 1 year because, as I was told, that we've only signed on for 1 year. So again, if we decide and it's something that can be done before May of next year, and I know the forecast can change to reflect that for the, for fiscal of '26.
I believe that this is sort of a trial.
Correct.
So planning for a year to see if it really is advantageous and then we'll decide.
Right. Also, one other item that is in here for a one-time year for 2025 is the Science of Reading stipend. So, we've talked about the Science of Reading stipend. So that is paid to every teacher. I think you probably know a little bit more. It depends on what they teach and how much that stipend is. So that is paid through payroll. There are, their retirement is taken out and also their Medicare. So the state is reimbursing us for that stipend. What we would normally do is we would have an expense, we kind of would make that deposit against that expense. The state of Ohio is actually asking us to treat it separately. They're actually showing it as a revenue. So in that number, that large number for 2025, there is that one time, it's about $100,000 that we will receive. But we do have expenses against that, which wipe it clean. Okay, the state share of local property taxes, that's rollback and homestead. So there is possible legislation that they've worked on and off on in years on getting rid of that. It is 12.5%-ish that the state is picking up for levies placed before September of 2013. So if the state would get rid of that, it would have more of a taxpayer burden, would have more of a burden on the taxpayer. So right now, again, it's just that gradual increase as property taxes are increased. All other operating revenues. So there's a few things in here you can see in 24 to 25 that is going down. So one thing that was in this all other operating revenues was the pay to participate that the board has talked about getting rid of, or I'm sorry, that the board did get rid of for this year. Suspended. So that is shown in here. Also, you can see in 2028 where the drop is even more. So we do have that, it's called a pilot payment. It's a payment in lieu of with Spire. It's for $197,000 per year. That is up in 2027, so starting in 2028, we will not receive that. Other than that, in this is interest payments that we've earned. I'm just trying to think. And that's probably the most important items that we would see. Total other financing sources. So this basically consists of this is not transfers. I apologize. Other financing sources. So this is when we actually will receive, we will bill someone in June, and when we receive those funds, because it's from a prior fiscal year, it actually goes into this other financing sources instead of actual revenue earned that year, because the revenue was actually earned the prior year. So right now, we've gotten rid of a lot of the billing of Chromebook damage. So that cost is going to go down a lot because we will not be billing in June and receiving the income in July for those billings. So a lot of this is we do bill the city for their gas usage. So if we bill them in June for May and June's expenditures and we get the income in July, then that's where this would go, that income. Okay, here we go. The overview of the expenditures. So like every other district out there, personnel costs do make up the largest portion of the expenditure budgets. So here at Geneva, it's 49% is in personnel costs, 14% in purchase service, and 7% in other expenses such as supplies and capital outlay and debt. So again, a quick synopsis of where our expenditures are. So I kind of want to talk about personnel services. So as you know, we are at the beginning of a 3-year agreement with OPSI and a 2-year agreement with GATA. So in this forecast, at least we know in fiscal 25 and 26 what the increase is for both of those bargaining units. So that is built in, and then going forward, and I apologize because I've done this so many times, I think there is a 2% increase. GATA this year, OPSI this year had a significant revision of their contract. This included the introduction of a perfect attendance stipend, the increased working hours for special need aides and regular aides, custodial staff, and then we have changed the compliance, or we are now in compliance with the Fair Labor Standard Acts of overtime rounding. So unlike the GATA, who took a set percentage increase from last year to this year, the OPSI, the classified contract, was revamped a little bit. We kind of wanted to make the base of the beginning of the salary wage comparable to the other schools in the county. So overall, from last year to this year, it was almost an increase of 10%. That does include steps, so again, it was a larger increase than in previous years. Going forward, they do have a set percentage of 3% for the next 2 years. So there is that little bit more of a jump that you can tell than the gradual increase. Also in 2025, we do have that little bit in last year we had the payment of some of the overtime and straight time over regular for some of the custodial staff that we were making or increasing their hours to 8. So that was in ESSER funds last year. Everything that was in ESSER is now in the general fund as of July 1st of this year. because ESSER funds are fully expended by December 2nd of this year. So we did bring back all the salaries at the beginning.
I'm sorry, Shelley, which year?
So
We had to spend them by November 24.
this year, no, yes, December, yes. So when the contracts ended, if you're a full-year employee, if you were funded by ESSER, that ended on, as of June 30th.
June 30th, 24.
24, right, and some of the ESSER was paid through the summer.
Right.
But everything as of September, out of ESSER funds for salaries and benefits has been moved back to the general fund. And we had very little, so it wasn't a big impact. I know in the news, there's been other large municipalities where, it had a significant impact to bring ESSER funds back to the general fund,
I think
so,
we were smart in that.
yes.
Kevin led us in a really good direction with that, I think.
So in correlation with personnel, we have the employee benefits that make up the 26.34. So again, adding the 53% with the 26% is up to that 79 of that personnel costs. So again, benefits, that includes the retirement, which is set, it's a set rate. Of both the board share of both the certified and classified percent is 14% of all the wages. In here, probably the largest composition is the healthcare benefits. So you can see in 2024, it's a little bit higher. And you're looking at these graphs, you kind of can see it a little anomalies. Thank you. So in 2024, we did have a small increase in the insurance rates, but the district also contributed $942,000 to our Council of Governments, it's called a COG, who holds our benefits. So to relieve a little bit of the implementation on the employees. Well, this year we did have a 13% increase on our base of our benefits, which came through in October. But per the collective bargaining agreements, the employee still does only pay 12% of the total costs. So again, that is a large part. Going forward with collective bargaining agreements, when those are up, we can look at, changing plans, types of plans that we have. But, I can't just say, we're going to change our deductible this year. That is set in the collective bargaining agreements. So the only thing we can do is look at our balance reserve, and we do get guidance from our COG, from our third-party administrator of Oswald at the COG, of what our balance or reserve balance should be. So, to fund this. Through here in subsequent years, you will see that I have put in a 10% increase for the health and vision. Right now, the dental is self-funded, and we did not have to increase this year. Purchase services. So a purchase service is any type of contracted service that we have. It's a professional, a repairs and maintenance. It's a property service. It's travels and meetings. It's communication. It's utility bills. It's people transportation. So, it's funding everything that we are not doing ourselves. So again, there's a gradual increase of 3%, I think, going through.
Shelley, I have a general question about that. So you've had time to look at it enough, and if not, tell me. How do you think we're doing on things that we're farming out, as opposed to how much of that could we do in-house?
I think a lot of it, like one of the main things that I see that comes across is outsourcing our transportation.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, as in every place in the state of Ohio, we have a hard time getting bus drivers. So if we have to outsource our transportation to an athletic event, that is something that can't be helped right now. And it's a small cost, but the small cost will add up. So eventually, yes, if we could build that up and take that back in-house, that would be great. There's small things that we can do. But I mean, overall, I think we do a good job. Also this year, again, part of what what I came across as I came in here, that we have the forecasting software, which we are utilizing in full already, and also the time and attendance and HR management that we are implementing come in the spring. So that cost is also built into this. Again, it's a purchase service. Supplies and materials. So you can see the large jump in 2024. That was for the new curriculum. We had, and I do have that in here, we have the English Language Arts curriculum, which was My Perspectives, and we had the Science Fusion Science curriculum that was purchased last year. But again, general supplies here, anything that is basically under $500 does not have a useful life over, 5 years. This is something that we would put in our supplies and materials. Any kind of, even a Chromebook is going to start going into here going forward. In the past, we kind of used ESSER funds to replace our Chromebooks. Those expenditures will be built in. Also in here is a large part is transportation fuel. So again, that will fluctuate with the price of the cost of gasoline or diesel fuel. So, but we do show a gradual increase. In talking with Mr. Riley, we kind of discussed, when we decide that the curriculum needs to be, and I think in May we should probably have a good idea, the curriculum will be implemented into the forecast of what we need to purchase. Capital outlay. Okay, this one's a little everywhere, correct? So capital outlay, those are your large purchases, your large improvements on a building, which we don't have a lot right now because we do have newer buildings. So we're kind of looking at this, it was very low in 2024. So at the beginning of the month, we did not renew, the taxpayers did not renew the permanent improvement levy. So the permanent improvement levy was a 0.8 mil levy that brought in about $200,000, a little over $200,000 a year. So in the forecast, I have increased our expenditures by $100,000 for this fiscal year and $200,000 for future fiscal years. So what that money was for, again, in the past we've used it to purchase buses. So this is what I have kind of built in talking to Mr. Riley, is that we would like to continue going forward replacing about 3 buses per year. Right now, those buses cost about $125,000 a piece, so, we're building those up. So that was reflected in the forecast. I only brought in $100,000 this year because collection years and school fiscal years are different. So the collection year, we have already received the $200,000 for calendar year 2024. We will not receive any in the spring, which is normally where we receive half of it. So we did receive the full $200,000 this year. $100,000 was in last fiscal year, $100,000 was in this fiscal year. So normally we get, we get 2 settlement payments. We have one in March and like one in July. Correct, so that's why we're losing $100,000 that I needed to put back into the general fund this year, and then $200,000 going forward. So again, we've talked about building up these buses, so those buses are put into this forecast to have a nice rotation.
And 23 and 24 are still low because of ESSER funds?
Correct, yes.
I have a question.
Sure.
So you're saying by that that operational levy failing, we only lost $200,000.
Correct.
And so we're still receiving the 4.3 and some change million dollars from the operative income tax.
Correct.
Thank you.
Those are 2 separate issues.
Yeah, no, I
Yes.
appreciate that. I think some people were looking for some clarity for that.
Yes.
So I just wanted to get it enrolled in the minutes, if I'm being honest, but
Yes.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Yes. So that will roll off as of now, and that will be reflected in, again, your tax bill payment in the spring. Other objects. These are those nitty-gritties that don't really fit anywhere else. These are our fees paid to the county auditor for collecting all of our taxes, the Department of Taxation for collecting our school district income tax, and our ESC charge that is paid through the foundation, through our state. This also covers any membership dues we have to various professional organizations, and also our audit expenses. The auditors do come in once a year. So also in this, you'll see this larger 2025 anomaly, and that did include included all of the settlement agreement that we've had these years with 2 entities. So that does show to reflect in here. Again, those are one times, they'll be gone. Okay, and then the total financing, so this is more of the transfers. So every year, athletics and the band do not bring in as much money as is expensed. This is a normal, this is everywhere. The general fund does true those up at the end of June. Going forward, we should not have as many negative lunchroom balances because of the CEP program. I did speak to Ms. Papik today about that, just to verify, to clarify that right now the only monies that are coming in are a la carte. So I kind of wanted to double check with her and saying, you know, we're not really letting children going negative on a la carte. And she said no, unless it gets through at the last minute. And again, those would be very minimal. So we won't have that transfer, but we still will have that transfer for athletics and the band account at the end of the year. Okay, this is where all the magic comes together. I know it's very hard to see. So I kind of talked about at the beginning what the state is looking at now. So in the first few years, the first 3 years, they're kind of looking at item 10.01, which is our fund balance less carryover encumbrances. So up there, I know it's very hard to see. Oh, can you see? You can see my mouse? Oh, look at that. So we are talking this line right here. So at the end of this fiscal year, we are slated to have $19.7 million. What they're looking at is they do not want you to be in the red for the first 3 years on this line. So if that is the case, they will come in and they will make an action plan with you. At the end, in fiscal years 28 and 29, they're actually looking at this 12.01 with any renewal levies that you might have on. Again, our district, I feel, is a healthy district. We are, if we go up here, you can see on line 6.01, that is your excess of revenues or over or under your expenditures. So right now in 25, we are bringing in $3.6 million more than we're expending, you know, but obviously going forward, your revenues don't increase nearly as much as your expenditures. So, yes. So in 2026, we are still gaining revenue of $823,000 over our expenditures. In 2027, we're at $49,000, and then starting in 2028, we start to deficit spend. Again, it is very hard. It's a great educated guesstimate on 28 and 29 being so far out. So, you know, if you compare 2028 compared to what I forecasted today, again, it's gonna be different. But this is the best educated guess based upon past history that we can project at this time. And that is all. Do we have any questions? I'm hoping this is a little bit easier for, you know, for the taxpayers and to the board to understand.
It's all the same information, it's just put in pretty.
It's put in easier readable form. A lot of the history is left off from what it was previously presented. So if you have any questions on the history, you know, I can get that for you, but.
Kind of makes sense that you wouldn't have the history because you weren't here for that.
Right, well, and I do have the history, but again, you know, this is kind of looking at, you know, the most history we're kind of caring about is last year, because again, especially with the COVID years, it was such a different animal than it is now.
I
So,
appreciate the key assumptions and notes being under each with the fractions.
Super
That's
It
helpful.
makes
nice.
it extremely practical to
Yes.
assign the use or interest based on what the fund is.
correct.
Yes.
And some of, the first part of each section here is generated through the software system. And then, obviously, I went through each section and kind of, you know, outlined of more of the Geneva, of why it happened.
Okay, so I need a motion to
We
approve.
had a motion.
We did? Oh, this was discussion?
Yes.
No,
So
we
we-
just need a roll call.
Yeah, you said,
Now we just need the roll call.
or
That's
I
what
guess there
meant.
could be any discussion.
That's what I said.
Yes, discussion.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Pierson?
Yes.
Mrs. Cybulski?
Yes.
Mrs. Krieg?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
And Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Is it still under you? H, I, no, I is me. Okay, so we wanted to have I was gonna say brief, but I don't know how brief, redistricting, discussion. It's on all of our minds, and we feel like that we need that. GPS is so overwhelmed. And we were brainstorming the other day about different ways, so I thought we would do that for everybody's benefit. Dave, do you wanna share what you and I talked about the other day?
Just really the question, I know we've brought this up a few different times in public session. Just need a little clarity as I've heard maybe perhaps we want to look at this as early as the next school year. Wasn't sure if we're looking at just redistricting transportation routes and boundary lines. Are we looking at making the elementary schools grade level specific, you know, like K1 and 2, 3, 4, 5? Are we just looking at, I'm not sure what direction to kind of go at. So in order for me to have really a conversation with the administration and also Mr. Olach, our transportation director, kind of need a little bit of guidance on what the board was thinking of doing or what they would like us to explore, so that we can kind of come back at some time and have that more of I guess a better understanding, a better conversation. So that's it at the
So
moment.
my understanding is we have a couple of options on how to redistrict, right? We can move some students from GPS to other elementary schools. We can switch all the elementary schools to be like Lakeside, for example, with a K2 school and a 3 to 5 school or something. I forget how they're divided. I think those are the two big ways to do it, right? What else is it?
I mean, this is something that has been on my mind for a while. But I think the best approach is to form some kind of superintendent's committee and get people on a team to talk about what are the options. Absolutely have Mr. Olaf because it will affect transport. I know, Olaf.
Oh, well,
It's going to snow.
stop it. She keeps using bad words.
Because I think it needs more than, I think it needs a lot of eyes on it because it's a big move. It potentially could be a big move. I think there needs to be some research done on, what are the benefits of the grade leveling? How does that benefit our students? So I think it's a committee that needs to be formed of people who are ultimately impacted by it. And I don't think we can sit here and say what we think it should be. I think we just need to get the wheels in motion.
I think too, initially we need, I think many things would be remedied by simply, transportation to start with. I think when we were down in Columbus at OSBA, they had at the trade show, they had some really, really great vendors there that this is
completely their wheelhouse. This is what they do. I think a lot of I don't feel like our transportation is as efficient as it could be. I think there's better ways out there to go about it. Again, software that has been designed that would take and just make our routes more meaningful, I guess, where we're not backtracking, going here, there, and everywhere. And then the other piece of it, I agree with Beth completely. I think we need a committee, and I think that we need to have many different hats on people in that committee, whether from educators to administrators, even some parents. I think we also need to add to that, we need to look at our student body dynamic and what they need. Again, working where I work, we had a huge enrollment drop, and it completely changed how we used our buildings. And I think it's going to have to be something that's a bit in flux, because when you have, we redistrict and we have a higher need of students that require, intervention services, then we might want to do some grouping to make that more efficient for the employees and staff that we have. I think we also need to consider that we have a lot of people that utilize daycare services, and in our district, we only have, as far as entities that provide daycare service as a business, 2, and they're both in GPS's district. Mm-hmm. So if we have parents that are having daycare challenges, or they have to have, we went through this earlier this year, having transportation, in the morning and in the afternoon to get their child back and forth from daycare, we need to bear that in mind as well when we're looking at which buildings are, if we're going to departmentalize as far as like a K2, preschool through grade 3 or whatever we decide on. I really think we need to consider making that building the GPS building, because that would fix a lot of our transportation issues in the summer when parents are trying to nail down childcare before the school year starts. That's all I would add to it. I think the committee is a great idea.
Yeah, and I think as part of that too, going as deep as, do our start times make sense?
Exactly.
I think that there's been a lot of research that elementary age students can start earlier than high school students.
Yes, there has.
So I think this is almost a district strategy more so than a redistricting. I think it's an opportunity to really dive deep into what we're doing and what makes sense as we see the need to move.
And, to maximize the use of the staff that we have, mm-hmm. because obviously we all know there's a huge teacher shortage right now. But if we can, get children that have certain needs in a certain building that's heavy on that staff that would provide that service for them, we need to consider that as well. And it really is going to be something that fluctuates depending on enrollment and student need. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be a plan that has to really be looked at most likely every year, so that we can, so mm-hmm. that we can meet the needs of everybody as they come. And we don't have a crystal ball, so right. We don't know what kids are going to come to us with specific needs. But I think of preschool settings, and like appropriate sizing for counters and sinks and all those things that you consider when you're building for a kindergarten, first grade, preschool classroom. It changes. I mean, and where I'm at, they did this, and we ended up in the building that was the middle school. And my kindergarten classroom was an old science lab. I mean, everything is like up to here. But space and finances dictate a lot. So, but I think with the buildings that we have, that's something that we have to keep in mind when we're thinking and strategizing about what we're going to do and how we're going to do it.
I think for me the key issue is there is a very small population by enrollment for areas like, let's say, Austinburg. And then GPS is just getting annihilated. You guys have to meet IEPs, you guys have to meet 504s, dietary restrictions, medical care, which we have seen become issues in the past. And some of these schools, they're extremely prominent to the point where it is someone's entire day, if not more. And then there are others where it may not be that full day. I love the idea of a committee because it brings those parents who have those needs and those children to tell us what is the hardest part of your day, and then to talk to the people who work at the school to say what is the hardest part of yours, and to try to consolidate not a compromise but an actual solution. Some of the things that I've heard are we have a gifted core as well as a special ed unit at GPS. Amongst other things, some of our administrators are going into making sure that these students, even ones who some see as problematic or some see as gifted, receive the best services for their condition. The issue is it takes a lot of very professional people with very large amounts of time to let a child behave. If you look at them and say, "What's wrong with you?" 9 out of 10 times, I don't think you're going to get to the core of the issue. And we need to allow those least restrictive environments to identify what those problems are and take seriously what we're hearing from not just our staff and our medical professionals, our special education department, our assistants. You know, we have SNAs that also make great observations and recommendations, and it seems like looking at those and fixing them as they pop up, as opposed to redistricting and creating more of a level issue where we can meet the students where they are, where their needs are, and to fix those issues and, God willing, prevent them. I think that would make us a lot more efficient, and it would make the professionals' time that we have across the board a lot more proficient. I also see that I have received almost no resistance in talks like this, but I've heard tons and tons of ideas. So that clearly means to me, Mrs. Cybulski, that we obviously need a committee and to bring those people to the table. So thank you.
So what do we do? How do we start that? Do we just tell Dave to do it?
I guess a couple of quick things on my mind as Mr. Pierson was talking. Yes, we could put something out kind of requesting families to be involved. I'm thinking the survey could go out to kind of get some feedback. I think myself, as interim superintendent, attending maybe the PTA meetings in December and just kind of sharing the thoughts and the dialogues that maybe we're going to start looking at, taking the points that you've all mentioned, into consideration. Those are a couple of key items, at least to start, I guess, getting the word out and start forming a committee of some sort. I agree with everybody's statements that you've mentioned. I think communication is going to be key, and listening to the feedback of everyone. Not sure if we can create a redistricting that will make everybody happy, but if we can address the needs that are here, and certainly approach it with a very open mind, and engaging everybody, listening to everybody, just truly listening to everybody, I think that would go a long way in helping our district move in whatever direction that we ultimately kind of wind up at.
And if we did want to take action today, there can always be a motion to amend, I believe, in this specific addendum where we could say something along the lines of potentially we propose an order to delegate someone who we trust in order to seek out candidates interested in a committee, and then they could propose those people into a committee, and then if that line item is accepted on the next agenda, we can say potentially there is a motion to adopt these people recommended for our committee who will be a side delegate of the board, and they will be the people who take in interest, take in ideas, and present it to Mr. Riley, Ron, and the board itself. So if that's a direction you guys wanted to go in, we should gauge interest with each of our individual members, and if we want to go that route, we should make a line item motion either to add to today's or to the next agenda.
I'm not sure, I would have to check, but I don't think this needs to be a board committee. I think this is a superintendent's committee, because if you have a board committee, it's very different on how we have to notice, and it becomes.
Yeah, so my
becomes
thing
like-
is,
yeah,
we would pick a
so-
delegate. That delegate would be whoever holds the committee. It wouldn't be like a board committee on like the instruction of curriculum. We could say, we choose Mr. Riley to be the person that handles the research for redistricting, and then it would be by default, it would be, as you had pointed out, it would be like a superintendent thing. My fear is throwing something more at you, because I know that you really want some things to do around here, like, looking at redistricting, but there might be someone else that maybe even you recommend be someone who understands, maybe someone Scott knows. We could ask Amy, what are your thoughts on this, and actually ask those questions. If we hear a name thrown around several times, that could be someone that we delegate to do such the task.
No, we don't need a motion to form a committee.
No, this doesn't need any motions today at all.
I don't.
This is just a discussion item. Not every line item on the agenda needs to be voted on. It's just a discussion item.
The committee is a great idea,
Yeah.
to get everybody's
Get
input.
everybody's heads in the game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because more minds are better.
So how about that? How about we charge you with finding the person that should do this? And then delegating it? What do you think?
Or if you're happy to do it.
So
and
that's where the motion would be.
If you are
that's-
bored.
That's where the motion would be
My opinion is we leave it up
necessary.
to you.
I mean, every time I go in, it's got his feet up on the bed.
I would be happy to lead this committee and work with, we have several administrators, we have several phenomenal OPSI members, teachers in this district that I'm sure would be able to help out, and parents as well. I truly think if, again, going out to the PTA meetings and starting to have that dialogue, going to the staff meetings at each of the elementaries coming up here in December, and just sharing this is what we're putting together, seeking their, not only their input, but maybe some representatives from each of those areas, that would be fine. I do know that Mr. Ola definitely needs to be involved with this in terms of transportation, and it would also be good to have some bus drivers as well. They're the ones that are transporting our students around left and right, possibly even some of our businesses, like somebody from the daycare.
Right, yeah.
To kind of take into consideration their thoughts and some ideas. So I'd be happy to start getting that organized, whether I continue in that main role or help delegate it with somebody along the way. But I would be happy to go ahead and start looking into that if the board would like.
And just as a reminder, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is if any board members want to be on the committee, that's allowable as long as it's less than two of us. Less than three of us.
Correct.
So two of us could participate, but if a third one does, then we have to call it a whole different thing.
That's why I was
Yeah,
trying to suggest to do a motion.
Yeah.
But yeah,
yeah.
So Dave, would it be feasible if the reporters put in, if anybody is interested in being part of the committee, they could contact you?
Yes, that would be fine if the media wanted to go ahead and
We got a thumbs up from Chris.
put that out. Yes.
Eric, you got it?
And you
Christopher,
both have
excuse me, it is
his email,
Christopher.
I believe, right? Okay,
Yeah, awesome.
thank you.
Anything else on that topic? Okay. Thank you all. Moving on. Stadium update. I think our beloved treasurer has.
Speaking of committees, so I did a little research. Luckily, I live in my home district is in Geauga County, and we just built a district. Or I'm sorry, we built a district. I guess we did. We
Yeah.
built a new school district, but we also built a new stadium. So within the last 2 years, they completed a stadium project. Just wanted to kind of give you an overview of what the cost is of a brand-new stadium, to a point, just so we know we're talking just on what I have seen. Obviously, there'll be more discussion. So the stadium that I currently have in my home district, has a front gate entrance ticket-taking area. It has the all-weather turf field. It has the all-weather track. Large new grandstands with a press box. Locker rooms, bathrooms, concession stand. So it has a nice field house. So again, 2 years ago, the cost of that that facility was over $8 million. $8 million.
In Geauga County.
In Geauga County. So, we're talking $8 million is a large investment. Again, something to fund this would be a bond issuance. It would go on the ballot. So first we need to talk, what is the price? What is something, in order to go on the ballot, right, we need to know how much this is gonna cost. So that would be kind of an investment of the district to hire an architect. Again, this architect is not going to be necessarily the architect to build the whole project. It is an architect basically to get preliminary drawings so we can get an actual base cost of this. So,
We have preliminary drawings, right? Jennifer?
Not
correct?
from
We have a sketch.
We
have
need,
a s-
we need structural
what that
drawings.
was.
no, you need
That's a
actual
sketch.
structure, right.
We have a
Okay.
concept.
So,
So what do we do to hire an architect?
so we could move this as fast as you wanted to, we could move this as slow. I did talk to our construction lawyers, Bricker Graydon. So they're like, you could do this, you could, in the next few weeks, we could pick an architect. The board can pick an architect. If it is between a cost of $25,000 to $50,000, we just need their statement of qualifications and a board approval, right? And you can say, okay, please go get us a cost. We could have 2 resolutions, this could be on the May ballot if we wanted to. Both resolutions have to be passed by February. And we can get it moving as quickly as we can. We could also, take it slow, make a committee, figure out, what the taxpayers want, if it's going to be, the cost is. I kind of just did some quick research before I came tonight. I kind of looked at Richmond Heights. So Richmond Heights on the November election, they had a bond issuance, for building facilities. It was $15 million. So for them, it was a little over 3 mills. Now, so 3 mills, I know I'm talking, exciting for me, not so exciting for you, but kind of how, we just had this, this issuance that was on. So 3 mills at current value, well, 1 mill brings in, it's gonna cost the taxpayer for a $100,000 home, $35 a year. So 3 mills, if the house is valued at $100,000, is gonna cost you a little over $100 a year per $100,000. So, it might cost you, basically $200,000 if you have a $200 if you have a $200,000 valued home. Again, that was a little bit larger issuance than we need, right? We don't need 13 million. We wouldn't need that. But I just want to give you, kind of the investment of the community into this. So the bond issuance is normally over the life of the facility. So stadiums-wise, we're talking probably 35 to 37 years. So this is a taxpayer commitment, of 35 to 37 years. Is it a great investment? I'm telling you. I apologize, I am not from here. I don't know your
A
relationship
lot of
with
people aren't from here.
but it is so cool to go to the new football stadium.
Yeah.
My district had a cinder track, so, just the technology that's in a new stadium, we flash the lights, they got, you can do bells and whistles, you can, do bare minimums. So I think, getting an architect on board, if you decide to go that route, can kind of give you a price range of where, of bells and whistles as compared to bare bones. And I think, to get that option. So, with that being said, also, with the architect, if we do front the funds to fund the architect, as we do pass a motion to accept that architect, we can actually pass a resolution for reimbursement. So if the bond issuance did pass, we would reimburse ourselves back into the general fund for the cost of that architect. So again, that's up to the board on, how they want to proceed. If you want to, even if you decide we do want to have an architect just really quick get some prelim costs. Because we will need it's called a par value, how much they think it's gonna cost in order for us to be on the ballot, to get the millage that it would go to the taxpayers.
And we're out of time to wait. We're going to be done at Spire in 27, and there's just so many things that are going on there that aren't conducive for our athletes.
So in talking with, again, our construction attorneys, we do have some advantages. We do not have an existing structure that they have to work around our seasons. So they could come in and, we pass this in May, they can come in, work during the fall, and start the site work right away. We're not planning around football season, we're not planning around
Big
track
idea.
season. So there are some advantages of having an empty site. So,
How do you select an architect?
again, for this one, since it's so minimal, because when it came to the architect of the full project, we would have to do the bids and go out and do that. But for
But
this,
just for the rendering or whatever it's
know,
called.
you guys could find a local architect if that's something that, you choose. We could contact other districts
I think-
who maybe have done.
So we attended a few, I picked some sessions in
Uh-huh.
Columbus for this very purpose. And I did save the slideshow presentation from that one because there was a couple I went to, but one of them was buy it, fund it, finance it.
Right.
And it gave different venues of how you could go about doing, selecting your architect and all those things. But I have that information, and they are happy to, if you reach out to them, they have a bank of professionals in the quadrants of the state that they will work with you to get somebody that works in your area, has a knowledge of things like wetlands and all these other crazy pieces that we have to consider. That came very, very highly recommended. They had some superintendents from districts that had just finished a build. They had some people there that were like mid-build, and then they had people talking about the starting process. And it was really informative to hear how they kind of blocked it out for each part of the state. So I think we really need to move forward. We're out of time. We have to get something rolling so we know what we need to spend and how we're going to go about getting it.
They also talked about different funding models.
Yes.
It wasn't all bond, it wasn't.
Exactly.
So I think we need to figure out how do we get a pulse on how the community feels about a bond issue. I mean, are we taking what has happened the last 3 elections and saying that we're wasting our time with a bond issue? Or do we think that PI doesn't matter and a stadium does? I'm not giving an opinion either way. I just think we need to figure out how do we get a pulse on where the community is.
So hence, when I brought up committee, right, if you decide to go that route. So again, if we decide not to, go forward and say, okay, let's try to get this on the May ballot. There is a state issue on the May ballot, so it would be our portion to put the issue on is at a very reduced cost, so I was told. Obviously, we don't know what's on in the fall yet, but then we could decide. And so if we wanted to, take a little bit of time, we go into the fall, we would have to have all our information completed and to the county by August 6th to be on the November election.
Okay.
So those are just, 2 key dates that we, want to look at. And then, I do have them for, if we decide to go into election year 2026. When we want to get that done, because again, it is 2 resolutions, so, if it's
Right.
not 2 full board meeting, it's a board meeting and a special meeting to have that. If we decide we want to choose an architect quickly, because if we want to try to do the first election, then, we could have a special meeting, they said, to hire that architect, because again, we do not have to go out for the bid process if it is under
But
50,000.
how do we, I don't know any, how do we even get a list?
Well, that's what I'm
Well,
saying.
Right.
I've got the
I was
information.
gonna say Yellow
yeah.
Pages, that's not right.
And
Google.
I think, was it Then Design that did our addition? I think it was, or
We had
GDP group.
GDP.
So
yeah,
there's
right.
something about if you use somebody you've used within a year, there's some processes that you don't have to go through.
Soil testing.
Even just the
There's a
rendering or
whole
whatever
slew
it's
of things
called?
that you
I'm using the wrong word.
kind of bounce over because you've had, it's like within a certain square footage
Yeah.
range where you've had the build for the board office. That was what they talked about that as well, which can be a huge price savings.
So I would say, the next step is asking for RFQs, right?
No, not actually. The first step is, again, we don't need all that for this minimal architect build. again, which will be-
Minimal.
You know, I mean, compared to
no,
what.
No, I
you
know. No,
yeah,
it's
The
not
job, not the
buildings. I
building,
get
the
it.
building job.
Yeah,
It's
it's
the
not
drawing job.
You know, I'd have to research that. I
Say
don't
that
know
again,
offhand.
Jamie, I'm sorry.
The cost of, you know, the fee that we get to go on the ballot. And again, that does fluctuate with how many items are on the ballot. You know, if we would be the only one on, we'd have all the election costs.
Right,
So that is kind of deducted from
You have
our
to pay to be on the
proceeds.
ballot?
Yes.
yes.
So when we receive
Did not know
our
that.
taxpayer settlements, you know, we have income, expense. So, you know, there's the expense of the election, it's the expense of the auditors, you know, collecting our money to give to us. So, yes.
Okay.
And those are, you know, outlined, they're not lumped together, so, you know, we can.
Yeah,
narrow
so
those
let's just
down.
pick one.
And
So-
I think the community, they're ready. Pushing out and having a well-designed, you know, committee that's not top-heavy with all of us in it, but community members.
Yeah.
I mean, leading with, if you get out of Spire, I've lost track of how many people, if you're getting out of Spire, we want to be part of it and help
Yeah,
you get,
me
we don't
too.
want to be at Spire anymore. I mean, I think we can usurp that into reaching out to the community, having all those planning sessions, but we definitely need to make a move and get some plans from, a rendering from an architect so we know what we're looking at.
So do we have to give someone, one of these guys, like,
I think Shelley, she's got it.
I
Yeah.
think, you know, I can contact, again, Brooker Graydon. Again,
I'll
I can
share
reach
with
out,
you, yes,
Well,
I'll
and I
sh-
think I wrote it down, I think I have access to all the
Oh,
handouts
perfect. Okay,
from
perfect,
the
yeah.
conference.
oh, is that who did the?
They did.
I didn't
the
go
pre-
to that
yeah,
one.
they
Well, I
did
don't,
the
who did the,
presentation.
who did the, you don't know who did the.
Oh, I can look, I can tell you right now, I can look.
So again, I'll contact our construction legal counsel, I can, you know, contact GPD, you know, and to find out, you know, how quickly, if this is even feasible, that we could have this turnaround, you know, just again, to get this idea. I mean, I think even to just get the preliminary number, even if we don't go on the ballot in May, you know, just so we have an idea, if the committee has an idea, if we decide to choose a committee of, you know, what we're looking at. Because again, you kind of talked about in the past, you know, other sources, so not the full dollar amount was going out to the taxpayers, you know.
The funding you just mentioned, there's grants, there's all kinds of
Correct.
ways that we can they give us a number, then we
That
can.
we
chip
It was
away
Brooker
at it.
Graydon that was part of the presentation. And then Kyle, I'm sorry, Kyle Newton and Mel C. Wells was the treasurer.
Okay.
And this was, the school district was, I can tell you just one second.
I say, I recognize her name.
Yeah, I'm not finding where,
Was that Marion?
maybe.
I feel like that was the name. Maybe that was something else. I don't know.
Might go
They're
to
all
the
running
side.
together.
You'll take it and run, Shelley?
So, yes, we will, you know, in the next 2 days, let me just see what I can, you know, get a hold of. Again, legal counsel did say if we decide we want to pick an architect, that we should probably have a special meeting
Okay.
before the December, because I think you know,
Yeah.
if we go December
Absolutely, yeah.
18th,
Absolutely.
and we need 2 resolutions
Yep.
to get this through, if that's, you know, if that's the way we want to.
Do we
the
need the
board
dollar
decides to
amount
go.
for the ballot when we do the resolution?
Yes,
about-
yes.
which is why.
About $5,000 to $10,000.
What?
Oh, I thought you meant to put it on the ballot.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
No,
I'm sorry.
I mean, we need a
misunderstood.
number for the ballot,
Oh,
right?
Right.
But,
So don't we need to,
Correct, so
that's
that's
why we're
what,
doing
with
this.
the architect, right, what we're asking for is a prelim drawing
Yeah.
that, you know, gives us a good.
the bones of what we're
Correct.
looking for.
And a good estimated cost
right,
of what we
then we
want.
can chip away at it with grants and the like.
And that was the other piece I was gonna add. Without having that, all the money, the free money that is out there and available, we can't go and apply for these things because we have nothing to show them. So in order to
Right.
get this ball rolling, we've got to get a drawing in. So I'm
Right.
all for an extra meeting, and
To apply for a grant,
they're
We
gonna
need a
ask you.
number.
Yeah, they're gonna
we need
say,
to
what do
we
you wanna
spend $8
do?
million or whatever,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
And again, hopefully, you know, we can find other funding sources. You know, my home district actually was able to use some of their PI money as collateral against paying. They issued unvoted on debt to use that, and donations. So, you know, it's all where you look and what we can find.
Maybe we
So,
can start a donation fund too.
But I
A
think,
lot
you
of
know,
athletic supporters,
I
right?
think the first thing, like you said, is definitely just getting a rough
Yeah.
cost. I mean, we can't proceed without that rough cost.
Yeah,
Warren Local. Okay. I believe it's Hamilton County, so down by Cincy. Those were the groups, that was
Oh, okay.
the superintendent and treasurer that presented with Crooker.
Okay. So Shelley has homework.
I will.
Well, not home, office work.
Office work, yes.
All right. Anything else on that topic for this evening? Yeah, let's do it. Let's get out of Spire before they kick us out. All right. Mr. Pierson.
Legislative report's pretty heavy, so I'm just going to read the proposed bills. This is a lame duck session coming up. Lame duck is a joke from far long ago, which is you didn't get the duck the first time on a hunting trip, so you have to finish the job somehow. You got to find it and do it. So at the end of the year, they get all the bills that they couldn't pass or finish or get everyone to agree on. They lump them into one huge meeting and they try to roll them out and pass them because most of them are going to be losing their positions next year. So with that overly enthusiastic introduction about great legislation, Senate Bill 208 requiring schools to open enrollment policies to accommodate military children. First introduced this in my first legislative report, will be up for vote. SB 293 will require schools to excuse students for religious release time. Schools are currently permitted but not required to do so now. Senate Bill 313 requires schools to equip buildings and staff with wearable panic devices. HB 411 proposes to increase minimum teacher salary to $50,000. House Bill 436 authorizes aides and intervention specialists to provide remote instruction. House Bill 468 requires districts to allow civic organizations to provide written information to students about their club and to give them 1 day a year to present to students, provided that representative has passed their BCI background check. House Bill 506 requires each school that chooses to stock naloxone, Narcan, naloxone to develop a policy about obtaining and maintaining their supply of the drug. House Bill 507 provides protection, safe harbors, and political subdivisions that implement cybersecurity measures. I've been trying to figure that one out. I don't even think that
Yeah, what?
honestly, that the House knows what they're proposing. This one's probably going to die in the water. But I do like that it says provides protection and safe harbors for political subdivisions that implement cybersecurity measures. Interesting. That actually is more to do with STRS retirement because there's a big fight whether we should have a human manage the STRS style retirement going forward or artificial intelligence. So if you're a really big legislation fan, keep that one on your calendars. House Bill 520 permits students to use club sports or other athletic activities to fulfill the high school PE requirements, which
We do
is
that
super
already.
long overdue. When I saw that proposed, I thought that
Yeah,
was a thing.
we do that already, though.
House Bill 560 requires school districts to reimburse teachers for the full costs of completing the number of graduate level credit hours, or CEUs, for implicit bias training, and ODEW will reimburse the district for the cost. House Bill 571 will require schools to include national suicide and crisis hotline numbers on student IDs, planners, and electronic portals. House Bill 574 allows a Board of Education employee to use, a BOE employee to use sick leave for parental leave of absence. House Bill 585 provides money to promote food options for students with religious dietary restrictions. House Bill 623 requires districts to offer at least one high school computer science class that includes computer programming and makes it a requirement for graduation beginning in the 26-27 school year. House Bill 633 requires districts that run elementary schools to hand out an informational brochure to parents developed by the Department of Health regarding type 1 diabetes. And House Bill 657 requires schools to make their Pledge of Allegiance policy public and post it on the school's website. That's all I have for today.
Isn't it already on?
Thank you, Mr. Pierson.
Interesting.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
We're really tackling the big problems.
So the sophomore showcase is coming up. ATEX mailer went out in the mail. If you received it, you have this information already, but Geneva's sophomore showcase, they will be going to ATEC November 26th if they chose to. Also on the front, we have 2 Geneva students featured, which is pretty cool. The board received a tour of the adult nursing program. They received a $391,000 grant, and we were able to view all of the different equipment that was purchased with that grant. And ATEC now has an entomage table, which it's a little bit bigger than this, stands a little bit taller. It's 2 giant computer screens, and now it replaces dissection, so they don't have to use animal parts. They literally can do virtual dissection and many other things on this giant
Sweet.
table that is unbelievable. So that was pretty cool to see. The construction project is moving full force, and they're actually working Saturdays to beat some of the weather, and they're on target. Career night is December 5th from 5 to 7. It's an open house. Labs are open to see. And then the holiday dinner is December 12th from 4:30 to 7. And it is going to be a pasta holiday dinner.
Mrs. Ortiz, do you know on the 5th what time career night is?
December 5th from 5 to 7.
Thank you. Anything else?
That's all.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yep.
Okay, the next item is discussion for the superintendent position. And I would like to make a motion to table this discussion until the end of the meeting so that we can add in an executive session if we vote to do so prior to this discussion. So that's my motion.
Your motion is to move into
My
executive
motion is to
session?
table this
Table it.
till the end of the meeting, and at that time, vote on whether or not to go into executive session on the topic.
If it's proposed to do that.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
Okay, so for tabling, are we just going past it right now?
We're gonna make a motion to.
We have to
kind of
vote to table
we're-
it, don't
We're
we?
making a motion to amend the agenda, basically,
Yeah.
Okay,
so,
we need to do that? Okay,
yes.
so we need a second?
So that was my motion, yeah, so we need a second.
Okay, second.
So I just want to table the whole discussion until the end. So am I allowed to skip discussion, or do I have to have discussion about tabling discussion?
We already had, I think we had the discussion.
We had the
about
discussion
tabling
about
discussion.
tabling discussion, right? Any other discussion about that? Roll call, please.
Okay, Mrs. Cybulski.
Yes.
Mrs. Krieg?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
And Mr. Pierson?
Yes.
Public comments. Before we start this, I'd also like to have a discussion about this. Its location on the agenda. Many of you have come to me at different times about why is the public comments where it is. Lots of the community has come to me, and I'm gonna give a tiny bit of history. When the community was struggling with the board's performance, public comments got somewhat hostile, and some of, I'll say us, Jamie and I were the only ones on that board, wanted to eliminate public comments. So what we did, the compromise was to put it at the end so that people wouldn't come, say their piece, and then leave. We wanted folks who attend the meeting to hear the meeting. It wasn't to stifle participation or in any way restrict free speech. It was so that you would hear the positive things like that Mrs. Doherty just shared and all of that. Then you'd get your chance to speak, and it was sort of a way to make you stick around. So I want to open it back up because a lot of you have said different things about maybe having two public comment sections, one agenda-based and one sort of free glance. And so I want to talk about it with y'all and decide what we want to do with where it is on the agenda and if we want to move it and where to. Any ideas? Do we want to move it? I guess we should start. Are we happy with where it is?
I'm happy with it being at the end of the meeting because once we have talked about all the topics, if that allows another topic to be added onto by the public, then they, have the right and the time to come address the board regarding that topic. At the very beginning, like let's say we're going to take a hot button item, we're going to take something into consideration. If we ask for their consideration and then at the end of that meeting they could give it to us, that's helpful. So I think that being at the end of the meeting is the best option, or at least before any planned executive action.
Okay. Anybody else have any thoughts or about that?
So I sat in a couple sessions at the Capitol Conference regarding running meetings. And several of the presenters talked about how at their meetings, they do public comments in the beginning, topic-based. So the agenda goes out to the public. If you, as a community member, want to speak on a particular topic on the agenda, then you send a note, and we record that you want to speak on that. So when we get to public comment, we call each of those people up, and you have to speak on that topic that's on the agenda. Because for me, I feel like we go through the agenda and we talk about things, and vote on things that maybe someone has a comment on that might give us some more information or something else to think about before we vote. Coming up to the microphone after we vote, I don't know how effective that is, right? So that to me makes sense. And then you have a public comment at the end for comments that are maybe not things that are on the agenda that you just want to comment about. But that makes sense to me in my head.
To have 2 sessions.
To have 2, but the first one, you have to prearrange.
Right.
Yeah, you have to request to speak. And it's
Oh,
still
and by the way,
limited
by
to
law,
3
yeah.
minutes and all of those things, but that would be,
Yeah, by law, just to remind everybody, the statute doesn't require us to have it at all. But if we have it, we have to follow our own policies on it.
And to amend this policy, if we chose to amend anything on the policy the way we do it, that requires a 4/5 majority vote to
Yes.
pass, because it's considered a bylaw.
Yeah, so I wanted to start the conversation so we can think about where we want that and think about if we want to
I
amend
mean,
our
the
policy.
policy doesn't say where it's at on the agenda.
Doesn't say where it is on the
That's
agenda.
not part of the policy, but the 5 minutes, the 30 minutes,
The
and
length, right.
agenda topic or any topic, that's in the policy.
Right, but so if we're gonna do an agenda topic specific session of public comments, then that has to
That would most likely
reflect in the
be,
policy.
I would think so.
Yeah. So, so we've got some that
and
like it at the
honestly, I
end,
don't
some
think
that want to.
this could be also taken up at our organizational meeting, right? Like,
Sure,
part
we
of
take
that
it anytime we want.
that discussion.
It's just that recently, I think, conversations with each of you recently, but something about this, and so I just wanted to bring it all to everybody. And the last time I had this discussion with the board, it was an executive session, and I was uncomfortable with that. I wanted to have a transparent conversation about this. So that's where I'm coming from. So I just want to put it out there. Let's plan to next time, maybe, or January, something.
I don't know.
Really have a motion and a vote on what to do.
I agree. I think we all have to look, we just discussed a stadium, and it's going to require some bucks. And we need to have, families here and attending, if they want to talk about that or make a statement about something we've already discussed, it would be nice for them to have the opportunity to do so, because we need to encourage our community to be a part of the decisions that are being made or we're making prior to us just saying this is how it is. I think that sense of engagement from us will go miles, in the long run with the
And
community.
it's so important. The 5 of us don't know a tenth of what we need to know to run the school district, right? We need to hear that from you all, so. Again, no motion needed really. I just wanted to, bring it up to everybody that we are gonna put it on the agenda sometime shortly. So to think about what you wanna do, and we'll go from there. So, public comments. We will now start a public comment section, 30 minutes in length. Each speaker gets 5 minutes. Jamie, will you time for me?
Yes.
And please state your name and address for the record. And here we go. Would anyone like to speak? Hello.
Hi, I drew the shortest straw, so I get to go first out of our group. My name is Gina Bell. I live at 510 South Ridge Road, East Geneva. First of all, as some of you know, we recently brought our daughter back to the Geneva district, and it sure feels good to be home, for sure. Once an eagle, always an eagle, right? Okay, so with that being said, I'm here to advocate for a young man named Dylan Burlingham, who's sitting right here, in hopes he will be settled in Eagle territory soon. Dylan is considered to be part of our family, and although Dylan is 18, he has looked to my husband, Brian, and I for guidance and help during a very difficult situation. I would like to humbly request special consideration for the open enrollment of Dylan at Geneva High School outside the standard open enrollment period. I understand that this request is unconventional, however, the circumstances warrant an exception, and that's how I feel. There has been a series of unforeseen events stemming from his current high school that has significantly impacted his life. That includes incidents that have been detrimental to Dylan's emotional and mental health. I am prepared with supporting documentation outlining such extenuating circumstances for you all to review and the challenges that have made it necessary for Dylan to seek a new educational environment for his mental and emotional health. However, due to the sensitivity, I have it in writing, so I don't have to say it out loud, and with his permission, I would be willing to give that to you to review.
I'm sorry, one question real quick. Dylan, how old are you? 18. Thank you.
I am confident that Geneva's programs, values, and community are a perfect fit for Dylan's needs and aspirations. We are eager for him to become part of the Geneva District and far removed from the turmoil he has suffered and begin to move forward. We look forward to Dylan's contributing positively to the school community and to be surrounded by those who have already shown their support for him. Whether they knew him or not, there's people that have reached out to him, students mostly, which is very impressive and what I know of Geneva. I've expressed to Dylan that this good treatment is how it's supposed to be and surely normal for the Geneva family and community. I kindly ask for your understanding and compassion in considering this request. Allowing Dylan to enroll in Geneva at this time would provide him with the stability and support he needs to succeed during this challenging period and be able to end his last 1.5 years of high school on a positive note and within the Geneva family, a family who genuinely cares. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Dylan, where do you live now? Jefferson. You have transportation to get to Geneva? Just curious, it's not my decision. Anyone else like to speak?
Short and sweet, I'm sorry. I'm also piggybacking off of Dylan. Good evening, board members, and thank you for your time. My name is Craig Pittenger, and I'm 5391 Savannah Drive.
Craig?
Craig, yes. C-R-A-I-G.
Thank you.
And the address is 5391 Savannah Drive, Ashtabula. My name is Craig Pittenger, and I'm a licensed professional counselor here to advocate on behalf of the students that you see present. Recently, this student has requested a transfer of schools from Jefferson to Geneva. This transfer was denied due to being outside of the transfer deadline. However, I'd like to point out that the student's request to transfer was due to extenuating circumstances. I humbly request the board to reconsider this decision with consideration of the student's mental health well-being. Due to what the student experienced, I fear they will be unable to move on from the events, and I firmly believe that allowing the student to transfer will help him move on from the negative experiences and have a happier and healthier life. And I would like to share too, I do work with students across different schools in the community as well, and this is one of those instances where a student has reached out to multiple adults for help and he hasn't been able to get resolution. So I respectfully request that we do, as adults and school members, that we do whatever we can to help him out through this situation that no student should have been going through. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Who else was there? She is. There she is.
Amy Wood, 6624 West Maple in Geneva. I just had a few things I just wanted to add to this stuff. I'm going to talk a little bit on behalf of transportation. I just started, so if we're talking about redistricting, that has to be first. That has to be first.
Yeah.
We are really lacking in bus drivers. They are doing their absolute very best. I give them so much credit. It's immense. But we need to try to help them and do better this year. We are really, if we have a call off, we have nobody. We are putting out a lot to other places because we have nobody. We need to look at sub pay. We need to look at getting people in there to help them. We are doubling, we are tripling, we are beaten at every end. That would be my first. I just wanted to say I went to GPS's parent-teacher conference. Mrs. Cram is doing a wonderful job with what she's done with the 3rd grade so far. I can see small differences in my kid alone. I think that we definitely need a lot more communication, and instead of beating a dead horse, I feel like most days, we need to start really listening to our staff, to our parents, to anyone that is willing to talk and just listen. I mean, we canceled bus routes, it's not a secret. We didn't have the bus driver. It angers a lot of people, I get it, but we have to do better for this school. I mean, that's a lot of kids, a lot of parents that had to take off work. We all know what that puts on us. But to redistrict, she's right. You don't just have one certain kid. You don't have one certain parent. We have parents that live here but work an hour and a half away. We're calling, going, got to be here within 45 minutes. So my suggestion is start with transportation. Listen to your bus drivers. Listen to what they need. There's a lot of things that go on those buses that need to be fixed, and we need to get more drivers. That is we wouldn't have to outsource if we could start pushing for better. We can do better. We're doing it. We're halfway there, but we need just a little better. But that's it.
Amy, speaking of doing better, yesterday when I went online and was notified of the online notification the buses would be running late, I immediately went to all our social media to see the announcements. On every single one, you had already responded to every single comment.
That's
and
right.
another bus driver, I believe, I've got to forget her name now. She had already said, no, your kiddo's with me, one of my favorite. She's on my route, not route 2.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you all for doing that.
Well, thank you. We were trying. We were scrambling, but we're there. I think Scott puts so much into that. He really does, and he's not here to talk for himself, unfortunately. But there has to be something. I mean, I hate to look at everybody and be like, if we have one call off, people get sick, people have emergencies, we all have families, but that's what we're looking at right now.
Bacterial pneumonia is
We are
taking out
literally
everyone.
going, oh God, don't cough on me, don't, and we're all pushing through, but it really, and it's not for anybody to be upset with anybody. That's what we're looking at. If we have one, that was a lot of children that we tag teamed and we got it working and we tried to do the best we could, and I made sure that we didn't have what happened in the past happen, and we were on every outlet that we could going, we're working on it, we're getting them home, we're trying our best. But please start there and then build up, because we have to build up these buses before we can do any other thing at the moment. That should be our priority right now. Okay?
Thanks, Amy. And I want to thank you publicly for what you've done over there at the transportation office. What do we call it? Bus garage? Yeah. Thank you, thank you. No, I know. I thank them too. They're amazing. Thank you.
Jen Quirk, 299 West Main Street, Geneva. So just a couple things. So the busing, they're rocking it. They really are. As a mom and as a teacher, like I really am seeing like a huge difference from last year, which is really cool. My mom works for the schools, which is super awesome too, and she knows how to drive the bus. She's pretty good at it. So like I know last year she used to try to juggle everything, and today's her birthday, and now she's 45, and she's getting older. Anyway, she's 45. So maybe if we had an option for them, to like she's the housekeeper at Quirk, to like if she drives in the morning, and then like goes to Quirk and does what she needs to do, but then gets to leave early to help with driving, but it doesn't go against her as her housekeeper duties, because she probably would like to do that, or maybe it's an option. I'm always trying to think of ways to help her because she is getting older and she's amazing.
You can stop saying that now.
Huh?
Stop saying that.
Oh, anyways, so Amy brought that up, and I thought of that. I know, like she said this morning, and it does catch up with her. Plus, I need her as my mom, and Luke needs her as her mama. As far as the redistricting, as a parent, I mean, I know it wouldn't affect my son and it wouldn't affect me now because he's in the middle school, but I really feel like a lot of parents like the schools that their children are in, and they live in that area for that reason. Now, I know it doesn't affect me. I would go either way. But also, like, I just think that some families live in an area because that's where they want their child to go to school, because maybe that's where they grew up and that's where they went. I agree. GPS is overstaffed because they took Spencer and Geneva Elementary and jammed them into one school, which I don't know where we were thinking with that, but who knows. So I don't know, but that's just my 2 cents. So, and then I'm here originally to speak about something that's been on my heart, and that's mean kids and teachers. I recently saw something in the last few months that mentioned that there was a concern that maybe enrollment was going down with Geneva. Now tonight I heard it seems okay, and that's really cool. But I do know a few things that I've learned from friends that I can count on at least one hand. At least 5 families that I know that have left Geneva, good families, good kids, because their child is being picked on or bullied or continuously just mean kids, mean girls, mean boys. It's just happening a lot, and it gets to be too much. I don't know the solution. I do know that I feel like we could do better with this no tolerance. When I was in school a long time ago, I just remember someone telling the principal I was picking on them, and I wasn't. But the principal spoke to me, and I knew better. And then I always was made fun of because of my nose. And so, but thankfully I was loved at home, so it didn't really faze me. But the one day I did say something to the bus driver in elementary school, and it stopped, and the child had consequences. And then in middle school, junior high when I was there were some boys that were athletes in middle school that were jerks, like big jerks. Not even sure why, because again, I was pretty, whatever, just a chill kid, nice to everybody, Anyways, so I'll never forget being intimidated by them, blah, blah, blah. And then one day being in gym and telling Mr. Bilak, listen, these kids, they keep doing this to me. And wouldn't you know, it stopped. It stopped. So all it takes is someone to put just a little bit of fear into these children to make it stop. And Mr. Bilak, I will never forget it. He followed up with me and he told me if it happened again to let him know, because then these athletes would have consequences. And I'm not saying it's always athletes, it's not. But the meanness has to stop. These kids need to want to have to come to school, and they need to feel safe, because my goodness, as an educator, I see a lot every day. And some of these kids don't get the love that I received and the love that I'm able to give my son. And I just think that we need to make our schools a little bit more safe and homey feeling. And Geneva's amazing. Geneva's amazing because I thought of pulling my son a couple times, but I know that I grew up here and I graduated from here and I had the best education, and that's why we moved back here from Florida, so my son could have an incredible education. So I'm, watering the grass, and I want to do my part to help however I can. But I do think that we can do better with holding kids accountable for not being kind, for putting their hands on each other, for not being kind, for bullying, for picking on. I think it can't be that hard. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jen. Anybody else? Mrs. Curtis.
Yes. Denise Curtis, 2393 Ketchum Road, Rome. I'm here on behalf of an organization that's called Bibles in Schools, and we do have legislation that permits us to put Bibles in school libraries. And so I have donated a pictorial Bible that's age appropriate for each one of your schools. And if you want more Bibles, they're free. You can contact the organization in the front of the book there, and they will give you as many as you need. But to get you started, I'm donating one for each one of your schools, the elementaries, the middle school, and the high school. So that was that. In tonight's meeting, something's been brought up that I thought maybe I could say something to. You're talking about redistricting. I want you to be very thoughtful and conscientious of your decisions. Because when I was in elementary school, I never moved, and I attended 3 different elementary schools. And it was a little bit exasperating, because I lived out in the farm country. They transported me to Geneva. I did not fit in there. And then they pulled me from there and they sent me over to Austenburg. So I enjoyed that one much better. But you've got to be very conscientious when you're doing this. Thank you.
Have you lived in Rome your whole life?
No.
My family's from Williamsfield in that area, and when I went down for campaigning and I had to see how big Geneva's district was, I was in some very interesting places in the South District, and it seemed like a very small portion got chosen for Harpersfield and then Austenburg. That might even have lived on the same block. And I always thought that's kind of crazy we didn't pay attention to it. And I think one of the first things I thought of, and I appreciate you for being here, is that South County needs some love.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Curtis. Would anyone else like to speak? Thank you all. Moving on, board member reports. Anyone have anything to share?
I do, but I'll make it quick.
Sure you will.
I will.
I always say that too.
I got to drive on Monday, down to Columbus. It felt like a weekend at that point. And I attended our legislation session for the OSBA. Basically, we delegate what parts that we want to advocate for. The emphasis was to basically advocate for reducing or restricting access to public speaking, which I opposed. I believe in the First Amendment, unrestricted access, as the Founding Fathers did, even though sometimes I question the sanity of that. But it is a constitutional right, and so that is what it will remain. And when I was in that session, I got to see the motions and the way that business was conducted in the state of Ohio. And what I can say is I was absolutely appalled in a very negative way at the absolute lack of parliamentary procedure, knowledge of how the democratic process works, and some of the business that had attempted to be done on the floor, not for the content, but by how clearly no one there knew what they were doing. And at that time, I was taken back by trying to show my 19-month, daughter giraffe videos and then being told about how equally evil either Sherrod Brown or his opposition was. And I realized quickly that the democracy that we stand for, no political party is endorsed here because I believe that they're both to blame, is in shambles because we're trying to pick the coolest topics and the people that we might relate to more. But down at the Capitol, they failed to even get a motion on the floor in writing. Not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times. To the point where the eastern portion of that entire process was laughing. I was so bothered by this that later on after the meeting, I had just driven to Columbus maybe 4 or 5 hours beforehand. I packed my stuff up. I texted Abigail. Luckily, my electricity was going in and out, so I had an excuse. I left that night, cashed out, and was able to refund the hotel ticket because I was so disenfranchised and I was absolutely so let down by the process and lack of knowledge of procedure that I still to this day am almost in like a state of shock. And I wanted to relay that to the public, and I wanted to get that in the minutes in some form of informal report, because that is a very large issue with governance, and it's not just an issue with Geneva, it's an issue at the state at large. It was very, very hard to watch firsthand. That's all I have.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything? I followed Mr. Riley around to the Halloween, fall, whatever they're called, parties. I did. Austenburg and then GPS, or the other way, I forget. And same sentiment. Such great activities for families and students, and the staff involvement. Not a single staff I saw was like, I have to be here till 8 o'clock. No. All of you all were like, yay, thank you for being here. Look, it's Buzz Lightyear. Have a candy bar, blah, blah, blah. And it was amazing morale booster, and I just wanted to share that with everybody. I also wanted to mention Jennifer Krause. I want to give her a round of applause again because she, and this award that Geneva and she earned are amazing, and I want to thank you so much for that. I also went to OSBA, and my big takeaway was, and I want to thank the district and the community, and I guess ourselves, for sending us, because it was great that 5 of us went and learned and took classes according to what our needs are here in Geneva, you know. And I took the coolest thing with OSU students who have come up with this whole curriculum for adulting class. And so I want us to have an adulting class. They have a whole curriculum you can, I don't even know if it costs anything, get from them, download from them or whatever, you know. And people complain to me about this all the time. We don't teach life skills anymore in school. So it's got, you know, banking, getting a loan, building your credit, buying a car, do you buy or lease a car, all of those, maintaining your house, your apartment, all those things you need as an adult, voting, registering to vote, all of those important things. And so I would like us to see us have that as an elective. And that's all I have. So at this time, anything else for the good of the order before we move? At this time, I'd like to go back to letter, was it M, about superintendent search. And I move that the board go into executive session for the purpose of hiring and firing and compensation of a district employee and for the discussion of legal representation for the district. Is that my motion, or do I need I need a motion?
That is the motion.
That's the motion. I need a second.
Second.
Any discussion about it? We are not going to do business when we return. If business comes from our executive session, we'll put it either on our special section when we do the architect or another time.
I do want to add that I know we have the discussion on the agenda, and I do think that we need to have a little bit of a discussion about, I'm going to just say what I feel about our search. My concern is around our policy and the fact that we are in a place right now as a board that we have a few very specific responsibilities, and one of them is board policy. And I think that when we're talking about how we move forward in selecting anyone for any position, that we need to always go back to that and follow what the policy dictates that we do. And if we're not going to do that, then we need to be open about it with the community in public and have that discussion with them. So that's my 2 cents on it. I don't know if anybody else has anything.
I think we've been, a little background for everyone who's not been involved. We've been emailing about this, and we can't email about it as a group because all of our discussions need to be in an open meeting as per the Open Meetings Act, and only specific things can be discussed in private. And what I would like to do, and we can forego it, it's up to you guys. My idea is to have that discussion in executive session so that we have a plan that we can share with the community. Because a lot of emails got.
Well, they weren't back and forth, they were pushed out.
Yes.
There was no discussion.
No. And I think we need to have it. I guess that's my point. Maybe I'm not articulating it right. But the emails were, delivered to us. One-sided. And I think we need to talk about it. If you want to do that in public, we can do that. Or we can move into executive session.
I think that we should have these conversations in the public.
We can vote on it, it can go down.
Well, we have to vote on it.
I know, but we're discussing it right now, right? So,
There's multiple attempts.
Let's vote on the motion to go into executive session.
Part of the discussion for this motion, there's multiple attempts to try to stop this conversation from happening in the public. I'm going to vote accordingly. I don't know why, but we'll continue to see what happens procedurally and go from there. But I just want to make that known. We had these conversations at least.
Attempts to what? I'm sorry. Keep it out of the public? I didn't.
Right, so we don't have executive session to the public. They don't hear what we talk about. Right, so that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
So we want to move to executive session to talk about this topic, right? So, because in my opinion, I think we should have it in the public. That's my advocacy for the people. I think you should be present in that conversation. Full stop.
Any other discussion about going into executive session? Okay. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Krieg.
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon.
No. Well, I know that, but I haven't discussed it with you.
Mrs.
So hearing
Ortiz.
this,
Yes.
Mr. Pierson.
Abstain.
Mrs. Cybulski.
Yes.
Motion passes.
so we're going into executive session. All right, I just want to talk to you about it. I don't care where we do it. Thank you all. We can't adjourn yet. Jamie, what?